Daniel Kohn now joining us on Gorman in the Morning, author, along with Nate Jackson, of Tearing Down the Orange Curtain, How Punk Rock Brought Orange County to the World. Daniel, thanks for calling in.
Thanks for having me on. What's up, Minnesota? Good morning.
So Orange County, California, has grown up, the punk scene there, I should say, grew up, I guess, in the shadow of Hollywood. It's probably easy to say. Just in general, Orange County is in the shadow of Los Angeles County. And I think that probably has a lot to do with why the punk scene has always been so vibrant. It's a bunch of people punching up. Is that fair to say?
That's a bullseye, I'd say. I mean, these people always had a chip on their shoulder. They were always stuck in the middle, if you will, between LA and San Diego, if you think about it. San Diego County right to the south. It was smack dab in the middle of the suburbs. So with being at the time one of the most conservative places in the country, certain kids felt a need to rebel and backlash against the sterility and like pleasantville-ness of what these tract homes were. And punk provided them that perfect outlet. Many of them were hooked by the Sex Pistols and knew they could play music. It wasn't going to be like Yes or Rush at the time where they were intimidated by the musicianship. They heard the Sex Pistols like, we could do that. And that's what kind of got them going. And being in the backyard of Fender didn't hurt either.
No, it definitely didn't. The punk scene that a lot of fans became aware of really in the 90s, like when some of the bands exploded. They had it start back, just like you said, Sex Pistols, London, New York City, even LA had a vibrant punk scene. But the Orange County kids were doing it in the late 70s just as much.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the guys who came along in the early 80s thought they were too late. The guys in the 70s, like the Adolescents, the Detours, and like early Social Distortion, and some of the musicians like Rick Agnew and like Mike Ness, they would go up to LA and go to some of the shows there, like the Hong Kong Cafe and some of these other places that where it was happening, like the Mask, and they were mesmerized and blown away by what was going on. And then punk kind of went away for all intents and purposes during like 1982, but they were still chugging along. And with TSOL and the Cuckoo's Nest, they had their own venue by the end of 79 and built their own scene down there that ended up mutating all those three, core places and kind of became its own sound, fused by the beach, the surf element of it, which Agent Orange really pioneered. It died for a few years before really taking off in the period you just said in the 90s.
If you just list the band names, Social Distortion, the Detours, the Adolescents, the Middle Class, the Vandals, Agent Orange. I mean, the names say it all. They're so great. Of course, I complain constantly all the best band names are taken, and a whole lot of them were taken by these guys in Orange County. You've been a fan of this scene for years as a music writer and as a fan, but I would imagine digging in like this, there were some surprising connections along the way, or plenty of things about all these various bands that you didn't realize.
Yeah, it's just how intertwined they were. Like everyone knew everyone. It wasn't a big scene, but it was a vibrant scene. Like
right.
A lot of these guys, when they started at the Cuckoo's Nest, that was the only show in town. That was the only place you could play. And as we get into it, the way these guys all bonded was the Cuckoo's Nest was next to a country western bar called Zuby's, and they shared a parking lot. So you can imagine what it was like when those two audiences mixed.
Yeah.
It caused a lot of chaos, and like TSOL sings about it. That Vandals definitely sing about it with Urban Struggle and The Legend of Pat Brown. Being there and being in that really connected these guys. And over the years, just the ins and outs of some of these bands, like Rick Agnew and Casey from DI and Adolescents played in the early version of Social Distortion. And like a lot of these bands cross-pollinated with each other. I know Ron Emery from TSOL played with some other bands that were in the scene, and they all kind of were interconnected that way. They were kind of carrying the flag for as long as they could of what Orange County was and what their scene was.
We're talking with Daniel Kohn, along with Nate Jackson, the authors of Tearing Down the Orange Curtain, How Punk Rock Brought Orange County to the World. The book is great. It's a very easy and compelling read. I actually don't read a lot of rock books. I just find it to be sort of repetitive or the same old tropes. But this is stuff I didn't really know anything about this. I've known about these bands. I think a lot of our listeners would recognize the names of these bands peripherally, certainly, but I don't think they understood of that shared heritage, the fact they all came out of the same scene. And it was in the 90s, The Offspring I guess it's safe to say we're the biggest, like commercially
Oh yeah.
successful of these punk bands. They blew up. We still play The Offspring here. They had millions and millions of records sold, but I'm assuming, of course, when they got together, they didn't have, their stars in their eyes. They were just looking up to the bands like Social D that got there first.
Yeah, it's funny. Dexter told us that him and Greg Kay missed a sold out Social D show in Irvine, and there ended up being a riot. So they really missed, by the skin of their teeth,
Mm-hmm.
chaos, and decided to start a band there. And then for the first 8, 9 years of that band's existence, from like 84 to like 92, 93, at most they were playing in front of 100 people. And in Orange
Mm-hmm.
County at the time, they couldn't even play. Like they'd rent out VFW halls, and then once people realized that there were punkers there, they wouldn't allow them back. So they really cut their teeth in Gilman Street up in Berkeley. And
Mm-hmm.
then even when Ignition came out, through Epitaph, they really had to prove themselves to Brett and to the label. And they had jobs. Like Noodles was a janitor like for years. And
Right, right.
Dexter was getting his PhD at USC, like in microbiology. So it took until about halfway through 94 after Smash came out, when they went to their newly hired manager, Jim Guillermo. It's like, do you think this is going to actually be a thing? It's like, yes, you are on K-Rock. You are touring. Well, should we drop out of school and like put our jobs on hold? They were like still very apprehensive about what was going to happen, even though come out and play, and then soon later self-esteem were flying up the charts everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they were still, it just goes back to the place and the work ethic and being
Yeah.
from where they were. They were apprehensive to give up, their not normal lives, but what was supposed to be their lives for music. And then there's a point in the book towards the end when they get to Ixnay on the Hombre, when the Offspring signed with Columbia, Noodles is like, oh, it's been 3 years. I guess I can leave being a janitor behind finally.
It's a great story, the entire story of the Orange County punk scene. Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses, he's a kid in Seattle in high school in the 80s. And he talks about the fact that, he heard it then. The people in Seattle were responding to something in Orange County all those years earlier. Before he got to LA, he already knew what was going on down there. And I imagine there were other pockets. Now, we're in Minneapolis, a great music scene for decades, of course, here. So I think anybody that's paid a lot of attention locally will appreciate this book. There's just something special about certain music scenes, certain areas, and the story of sharing a parking lot with a country bar. It's just, you can't make that stuff up. There's a certain pressure, internal and external pressures, that all the best music scenes seem to have, unexpected connecting points. It's a story that maybe not the sound of the music, but a lot of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities music fans can relate to.
Totally. And think about it, even the later years where Sublime and No Doubt are intertwined together. They came up together. They played shows together all the time. And I actually have an archived cassette from Sublime that's a cookie box where they say, they put this out for a tour or whatever, and then it says one of the tracks is Sublime, Saw Red with Gwen from No Doubt. It's
Yeah.
like a friend of theirs, and just looking at it is just so surreal. But those bands were all intertwined, and they all had connections to the hardcore scene. Ska for No Doubt with Fishbone they go back to,
Mm-hmm.
and Sublime is just a melting pot of every type of sound that could have only have happened in Long Beach at the time. Like they were Bad Brains, Black Flag, and then reggae and rap. It was what they
Yeah.
listened to, and it all came out of that. While Social D changed also and played, roots rock, and that's when they got their big boost. So the Orange County sound was this thing that mutated to become much bigger than its originators even anticipated.
Daniel Kohn, Tearing Down the Orange Curtain is the name of the book, How Punk Rock Brought Orange County to the World. It's available wherever you want to buy books. How long, soup to nuts? You've been telling me about this book for a while.
I think we started this around when your book came out.
Okay. Well,
So what is that?
that's
6 years.
almost six years ago. Yeah.
So
Fair
this thing,
enough.
it's been a long, long road, and COVID certainly didn't help that road. But
Yeah.
during the middle of it, we really got Nate and I got rolling on it, and then with the belief of like Mike Ness, with the belief of the Offspring guys and some others in Sublime early on, it really gave this project cred. Where we were able to go get it out on the road and like get it to
Hmm.
an agent and get it to a publisher who saw it because of the belief in those guys who understood what the purpose was, which was to give this scene its due. And we were shocked that no one had even written about this before as a book. It was mind-blowing, actually.
Tearing Down the Orange Curtain. Great read. Thank you for calling in, brothers. Good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Hope to see you all soon.